theatrical spectacular in the finest traditions of hippiedom. Along with the special T-shirts, John Lennon campaign song and satirical press photos, there was a serious attempt to rally public support. But the struggle was doomed. British law said Oz was obscene, and that was that. The author of these two books, The Sexual Behaviour of Young People and The Strange Case of Pot, is Michael Schofield, a social psychologist and researcher into the youth culture of Great Britain. Did he think that Oz number 28 was obscene?
No, I don't think it was an obscene magazine at all. It was written by young people, and they intended to shock, and one way to shock is to bring in sexual matters, but it was not obscene.
But was it obscene for children?
No, I think this is an important point. It was called the School Kids edition, but it wasn't intended for school kids. In fact, it would bore most people under 16. For example, there was nothing about football in it or about romantic stories. No, it wasn't for school children at all.
Or not obscene for them?
No, I don't think it would affect them. I think there's been a lot of evidence about obscenity to show that young people are curious, but not harmed by pornography.
Why then do you think that the editors were prosecuted?
Well, Richard Neville, I think, called it a political trial. Politics isn't quite the right word because it wasn't party politics, but it was, I think, because they were protesting about the existing situation. Neville said that the older generation was deaf. I think a better word would be afraid. They were afraid of change.
But are the great wimpy-fed masses of England so afraid of change? Scores of strip clubs, pornography bookshops and sex supermarkets cause hardly a ripple, and for years those voices of disgust from the underground have been listened to with quiet tolerance. Massive press coverage of the trial changed all that, and now everybody's got an opinion.
Why do you think they should have been sentenced?
Well, I think it's an example to everybody else. Quite honestly, I think that everything's becoming far too permissive. There's no privacy. There's nothing left, and if things are exposed the way they are, they just become cheap and nasty and lose all their meaning.
What's your reaction been to the verdict on Oz magazine?
Indifferent. I think primarily very disgusted. I think the judge really sort of went to town a little bit too much.
Well, having not read it, I hesitate to cast a judgment. I do think that most of my friends and myself probably could be quite amused by it.
What's your reaction to the verdict?
I think they asked for it.
It's terrible. Why?
Well, if you don't want to read it, don't read it.
My reaction is that they should have been put in prison and kept there.
Why?
Because I disagree with everything they're doing. I think they are disgraceful and they should not be allowed to publish in this country.
Not everyone, however, was amused, and the editors of Oz considered themselves lucky to be out on bail and to have escaped any greater punishment than a prison haircut. After over a month in court, they've now had 10 days together behind bars in which to ponder the lessons of their recent history. There's been a lot of talk about how the Oz trial has been a victory for the establishment over the freedom of youth. Do you see it in those terms?
Well, not at all. I think the first thing I'd like to say is that the fight is only just beginning. I mean, we're trying to talk about the conclusion of a Cassius Clay fight after having seen only round 2. I think, on the contrary, I think the fact that we're out on bail today is a sort of a fairly eloquent testimony to the effect of public demonstration and the public outcry. And there was an amazing outcry, and even, I mean, I read the Times today, and they had 400 letters about the Oz case just in the last day, and the time was equally divided. You know, and the situation, as we predicted in the case, has polarised. You know, there is now a very big split.
Well, do any of you then think that this has marked the beginning of a sort of purge of Britain and its underground press?
Well, I think the intention of bringing the trial and to get a victory in the trial was to mark the beginning of a purge, but I think perhaps because of the reaction and because of the demonstrations which have occurred, they may think twice about openly attacking other underground papers.
After carefully thinking about it, I honestly think that it might be true to say that the police couldn't bring themselves to believe that that issue was in fact produced by school children. They know differently now because we have on sworn testimony, you know, proved that, and they have accepted it. But I think initially, when they first saw the publication, they might well have believed that we were using children, you know, just to try and sell more copies of the magazine, whereas in fact, you know, those children did produce that issue of Oz magazine.